Anytime we use sample data to make conclusions about our population, there's the potential for error, like we said. One type of error that can arise in our samples is called bias. And bias can come from either sampling bias or measurement bias. So if we're using sample data to draw conclusions about a population, we hope to collect that information from a sample that's both randomly selected and representative of the entire population. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Some studies are guilty of using too small of a sample size, meaning they're asking too few people, or if we're studying objects off a production line, they're running too few of those items through safety testing standards. So if we use too small of a sample size, if we use a convenience sample, so a convenience sample just means we're going to sample the things or the people that are convenient. So rather than going out and trying to get a random group of people that are representative of the entire population of the United States, I could just ask a few hundred people in my neighborhood what they think about the president or about their annual income. So if we're using a convenience sample, we're not getting a representative population. Some studies use a voluntary response sample. So in a voluntary response sample, this would be like if you've ever been at the mall or at a store and somebody's standing there with a clipboard and they try to catch you and ask you questions. Most people ignore them, but that would be a voluntary response sample. They're not getting a very good random sample because people can just say, no, I don't want to participate. And then the people who do participate are usually people who either feel very, very strongly about the issue that they're collecting information on, or they're probably just somebody kind of feeding false information just to mess with them. We also have studies that can suffer from non-response bias. So non-response meaning some of the people that we selected to participate in our study choose not to reply. So whether we contact them through the mail, we contact them via phone, however we try to get in touch with them, they don't respond. So information that we were planning to receive as part of our sample never makes it to us. So all those are different types of sample bias. Sometimes they occur because a study isn't prepared properly. Other cases, like in the example of a non-response bias, sometimes there's just nothing you can do. That's just going to happen because some people don't want to participate in a survey even if you selected them to do so. So we also want our data to be as accurate as possible. And the accuracy of our data can be affected by collecting data that is reported versus measured. So essentially think of any question that people don't like to answer. How much do you weigh? How old are you? How much money do you make? If you ask people to answer those questions, there's a good likelihood that people will give you a misleading answer. If they don't want to mention that, if they're embarrassed of how little they make, or if they don't want to reveal how much they make, they might lie to you about their salary. People might overestimate or underestimate how much they weigh, different things like that. So instead of collecting reported data by going up and asking people answers, we instead want measured data. So if you want information on how much people weigh, you'd actually want to bring them in, weigh them, and get that accurate measurement. Or if you want to collect data on how much people make, you would want to look at their pay stubs or tax returns. So something that kind of verifies that the information you're collecting is accurate versus what a person might remember or might be willing to tell you. So we also run into issues with data collection if we have surveys that have questions that are loaded or confusing. So a loaded question is a question that's worded in a way to try to get you to answer a specific way. And for confusing questions, we're talking about just anytime you've ever taken a test and a professor, instructor wrote a question that wasn't incredibly clear, that you read the question and you weren't sure what the answer was supposed to be because the question didn't make sense. So if a survey is worded unclearly, a person might give you an answer but not know exactly what question they're answering, or thinking they're answering the question honestly, but because something is confusing about the question, they're giving you some incorrect information. So again, these things can occur because either a study is designed poorly or perhaps just by accident mistake. So some of these different sorts of bias we can control. Others may just happen and we might not have any control over whether those do or don't affect our data.